All right, well, it is time for a rant video. I am going to list for you 5 pet peeves I have about crossbow manufacturers, crossbows in general, and the crossbow industry. The first one, you're not going to agree with, most likely. Most of you aren't. And that is cranks. I really don't like cranks on crossbows, right? For 15 years, I've been hunting with a crossbow. The one hanging on the wall there, the OB Bunjie. That crossbow doesn't need a crank. 175-pound draw weight. You reach down, you cock that thing. You put the rope cocker in your pocket for later use. You shoot some animals, take them home, and everybody's happy. Genevieve, on the other hand, has a crank on Bunjie Jr. She's got a crank way on that. Crank a little bit here, crank a little bit there. And I have really chosen crossbows to avoid having a crank. I know cranks are in the future for me. If you want to shoot into the 450 feet per second or greater speeds, you're just going to have a crank. I know it is the future of crossbows. It's just me. It's a pet peeve. I want to get this off my chest. There you go. Number 2, another thing I don't like about the modern state of the union of crossbows, okay, is draw effort. What in the world is this? Certain manufacturers, they don't want to tell you that it's a 300-pound draw weight. They're kind of hiding that from you with this new phrase, draw effort. Draw effort is nothing. It's not a real thing. It's like the wind chill factor or something, right? I want to know what the temperature is. What is the actual temperature? Not what does it feel like, right? I'm not interested in feelings. I'm interested in reality, in real numbers. I want to know the draw weight of those crossbows. It is the draw weight of the crossbow that is used to determine certain other things. We need to know the draw weight in order to calculate crossbow efficiency. You can't do that with draw effort, right? You got to do extra steps of math to translate draw effort into draw weight so that you can get accurate data. Just give me the draw weight. Quit pretending. The world already knows. We already know that your draw weight is astronomical. Okay? Excalibur, I'm talking to you. We already know you're putting all kinds of weight on those tiny little brand new micro limbs, right? It is what it is. Tell me the number. Scrap this whole draw effort thing. 12 pounds is all it takes to crank that little thing. It's just like fishing. It's so easy. No, I want the draw weight. Number 3, cocked width. I don't care about the cocked width. Don't give me the cocked width. The cocked width of that crossbow, it's kind of good to have if you want to compare it with the uncocked width. But even that, I don't care about axle to axle. I care about the absolute outside of that. If it's got cams, I want to know from the outside of one cam uncocked to the outside of the other cam uncocked. That's the number that is valuable to me as a crossbow hunter. It is the outside of that cam or the limb tip that's going to hit the tree next to me or the side of the blind. It's that measurement that tells me what I can and can't expect to do with that crossbow in small quarters. I want the absolute outside uncocked. It's also nice to know the cocked width so we can measure the difference between the two. Maybe that's valuable, but I need to know the absolute width of that crossbow. Number 4, being a test case. Man, I don't really like that either. You know, years ago I had a little bit of a debate with a friend of Bunjie about, I don't think we're test cases. I think they actually do a pretty good job of research and development on these crossbows. Now I'm not so sure, right? We got the R500 coming out, and that thing comes out, it's out for a year, and they recall 13,000 of those crossbows, right? Boom, gone. Take them right off the market, got to send them back, get them fixed, or what have you. That's something that suggests to me they didn't really spend enough time in research and development. They really kind of rushed that to market. I understand it was a last-minute kind of thing, getting all the pieces together and making it work and all that and shipping it, and they shipped it late and everything else. COVID played a role in that. Not necessarily a knock against Raven specifically, because they're not the only ones that do this kind of thing. 10 Point released the 505, right? And then a year later, they release it with those struts on all their high-end crossbows. Got those scope struts on there to keep the scopes from wiggling. Various manufacturers do this. Excalibur shipped out a bunch of crossbows, had limb problems. They kind of redesigned the limbs. It's not one brand or the other. It seems like it's the whole industry shipping these out. The Killer Instinct SWAT X1, I love that crossbow. The Enforcer, I really love that crossbow, but it's also one that shipped, the one that I got even, had older strings and cables on it. And rather than pull all of those, fix the right strings and cables, and ship them with the right strings and cables. They just send them out to market and let people figure out that, hey, this needs attention and it needs to be fixed. They should fix this stuff ahead of time. They should plan this out ahead of time. They should test all of this ahead of time so that when we spend our money on a crossbow, we know that it is one that's going to work. Number 5, here's a neat one too that never comes up. Nobody ever really mentions this, but it's 2024. It is a digital era. We have YouTube, we have PDFs, and we have all this other means out there of disseminating information. Yet these crossbows come with almost no instructions. Have you noticed that? You buy a new crossbow, it's like, oh, here's a little pamphlet maybe, or a photocopy of some stuff that might be valuable. They should have, for every model of crossbow that they release, a video series. Not just a video, but a video series on YouTube explaining everything that crossbow requires. All of the maintenance, how to cock it properly, how to load it properly, and how to hunt with it properly. How to shoot in the backyard properly and safely. That's really the manufacturer's job. It's not my job on Death by Bungie to tell you how to safely hunt with your gear. It is between you and the manufacturer. Yet these manufacturers do not provide this information. They just don't do it, and I don't understand why. There should be a video series for every model of crossbow designed by the manufacturer so that we know what they expect us to do when that crossbow that they built is in our hands. I am not done. Misrepresentation. I'm not happy when people misrepresent the product that they are selling to me. What burns me more than anything else, and I realize now I'm past 5, forget the math, right? That's not my thing. But when they misrepresent speeds of crossbows, that really burns me. It is not, again, one brand or the other. Excalibur will tell you the speed of their crossbow. It's a 400 feet per second crossbow. But when you look at the fine print, they got that speed with a 350 grain arrow. You know what a 350 grain arrow is? It's pretend. We are pretending along with that company that is a valid arrow weight, and it's not. Nobody ends up hunting with 350 grains, right? I mean, I tried, right? And you've seen where that goes. The reality is 400 grains or 450 or so. I've done polls on YouTube. I think consistently across the board, other places have done polls as well. The reality is most arrows, when you buy them, they kind of add up to 442 grains or somewhere in that mix anyway, when you get them all set up, especially if you're using a 150 grain broadhead. And for the most part, that's a good solid hunting weight for most crossbows, and manufacturers ought to be realistic. I know there's a little asterisk and there's fine print. It says speeds up to. Now, some manufacturers, like Raven, for example, Raven gets its speeds across the board with a 400 grain arrow, what I understand, and their speeds match what they advertise. The SWAT X1, I love that crossbow. I really, really do. It is a solid performer and a perfect crossbow setup. For hunting, it is what I have referred to as crossbow perfection, right? To me, it is the perfect mix of speed and size and the lighter, faster, smaller, denser, cheaper, all that good stuff. Perfect, but it doesn't shoot anywhere close to its 405 feet per second that I was promised. It does not. You put a 390 grain arrow, which by their specs, you can reverse engineer the calculations on deathbybungie.com on our calculators. Thank you, old grumpy hunter, for those. If you look, we've got a joint effort there. And you can calculate the arrow weight that was used by the manufacturer to get whatever advertised speeds they're doing. I shouldn't have to do that. They should just tell us that, right? But it looks like it was a 390 grain arrow. I can tell you that my version of the SWAT X1 does not shoot that fast. And here I am tinkering around with arrow weights in order to lighten the arrow a little bit to gain 10 feet per second. Does that sound familiar? Doesn't that sound like an entire decade of my life that was spent hunting with the old slow crossbow Bungie? Not complaining at all. I love that crossbow. That crossbow is also crossbow hunting perfection in so many ways, but it's old and slow, right? And I don't like to have to tinker with arrows in order to get the speeds to get closer. I'm not even asking for fast, right? 405 feet per second in this day and age is not fast. I'm just asking to get what I was promised, right? 405 feet per second. Or close to it, right? And if I choose to use a heavier arrow, I shoot 450 grains instead of 390. I understand it's going to be slower, but predictably slower. Enough of that though, right? There's your rant video for Crossbow Appreciation Month. A whole bunch of food for thought. Let me know your crossbow pet peeves. Let me know what you think of these. And until next time, all hail Bunjie.